Hello everyone, welcome to the Lightning Ball channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so and activate the notification bell. Your support fuels my continued efforts. In our previous episode, we talked about how Mana Seal unexpectedly showed intense jealousy and refused to cooperate while Rimuru was captivated by Hinata's beauty. We learned that Seal, as a partner, did not always obey the master, Rimuru, in every situation. Meanwhile, we also shifted our perspective to the enemy camp. In the original novel, the author cleverly uses Kagali's viewpoint to unveil the entire plan of Michael and Feldway. In this episode, we will continue from Kagali's perspective. After being taken to the Star Palace, Kagali encountered Demon Lord Dino and one of the three mystic admirals, Zelario. Realizing the vast difference in strength, Kagali decided to put aside her dignity for the safety of the moderate Harlequin alliance and Yuuki Kagurazaka, enduring humiliation temporarily while waiting for an opportunity to act. Subsequently, Michael and Feldway returned to the Star Palace and summoned everyone to the audience hall. In this episode, we will discuss the process of the angel's incarnation under Michael's command and also unveil the sealed history to understand Kagali's tragic past, the camaraderie with the clowns, and her encounters with Yuuki. Let's get started. In the grand central hall of Star Palace, the ancient throne had stood vacant for many years. Michael sat on a chair closest to the throne, with Feldway standing beside him, overlooking those assembled. Present were not only Zelario and Dino, but also Kagali and the newly created deathman bodies had been brought here. Additionally, Abra from Spooky Palace and her confidant Oma, as well as Insect Lord Zelenus and his 12 insect generals, were gathered. However, from the 12 insect generals, only 8 remained. Among these generals, Razel had betrayed Zelenus, becoming a close friend of Grand Bel Rasso and the Guardian of the West, while Manaza was the 6th-ranked Imperial Guardian sent by Zelenus to assist Emperor Rudra in the Central World. Coincidentally, both were killed by Xian. 2 other insect generals had escaped during their larval transformation phase, one of whom was a direct descendant of Zelenus. Notably, these 2 generals were Zijin and Epito. Zelenus had issued a secret order to search for them, but their whereabouts remained unknown till this day. The remaining 8 insect generals, each possessing Demon Lord-level combat abilities, stood silently in the hall, their presence creating an oppressive atmosphere in the otherwise spacious room. The chief among these generals, Zes, was noted for his strength surpassing the others, matching that of the 3 mystic admirals, including Zelario. After assembling everyone, Michael officially commenced the meeting. During this war, they had completed the first step of reviving the Star King Dragon Veldanava, and Feldway had successfully exiled Velgrind. However, at a crucial moment, they were thwarted by Demon Lord Rimuru. Not only did their plan to kidnap Ramrus from the labyrinth fail, but Velgrind had somehow returned to the central world and killed Kornu, one of the 3 mystic admirals, within the labyrinth. Fortunately, Michael had secured Velgrind's dragon factor, and Frost Dragon Velzard was now under his control. With these developments, all that remained was to enhance their own forces to ensure the success of Michael's plan to seize Storm Dragon Veldora. As for the method of enhancing their forces, the 9 prepared deathman bodies were ready for the next step, which involved a flesh incarnation ritual for the powerful subordinates. Of course, since insectars were semi-spiritual life forms, they did not require flesh incarnation, and thus, only Abra, her subordinate Oma, Zelario, and his 5 subordinates participated in the flesh incarnation ritual. This accounted for only 8 individuals, leaving the utilization of the remaining deathman body a question. While Kagali was pondering this, she happened to make eye contact with Feldway. Feldway informed Kagali that her control had been lifted and asked about her plans after the incarnation ritual. Now that it was her turn to speak, Kagali cautiously asked if it was possible for her to escape. Unsure of the other party's intentions, she initially approached the subject tentatively, but received an unexpected response. Feldway explicitly stated that after the ritual, Kagali would have complete freedom to choose her actions. He clarified that Kagali's task was merely to create the deathman bodies and ensure the successful incarnation of the angels, and Feldway had neither the intention nor the necessity to trouble her, allowing her return to the central world without issue. Hearing this, Kagali was confused. She had assumed she would at least be imprisoned. However, Feldway's clear statement that she could leave, combined with the overwhelming strength of those present, suggested there was no need to deceive her. Nervously, she made another request, asking if Michael and Feldway could also release Yuuki Kagarizaka from control, allowing him to leave with her. However, Michael calmly denied this second request, stating that Yuki's Lord of Greed was still of use to him. Understanding this, Kagali fell into deep thought, contemplating how to rescue Yuuki and whether escaping was still the right choice under these circumstances. At that moment, Feldway affirmed that there was no problem with Kagali returning to the central world, but he warned that the world would soon be embroiled in turmoil. Feldway did not hide his disdain for humanity, stating that while he did not necessarily wish to exterminate humans, he was certain that if Kagali returned there, she would be caught up in the ensuing conflict. Feldway declared this to be divine punishment. Those humans who had betrayed and harmed Veldanavasama must be sanctioned. Feldway's voice was calm, but Kagali felt a chill down her spine. If the entire world was to be engulfed in war, there would be no safe haven anywhere. Moreover, under such circumstances, her dream of creating a peaceful and prosperous nation seemed utterly unrealistic. Kagali realized that to survive under her current circumstances, she needed power. Therefore, she made a decision she believed was absolutely correct. Kagali requested that Michael and Feldway leave the last deathman body for her, and also pleaded to have a seraphim inhabit her, allowing Kagali to abandon her current frail body, be reborn as a deathman, and simultaneously absorb the power of a seraphim. Kagali understood that only by doing this could she ensure that nothing more would be taken from her. The room fell silent at her request. After a moment, Michael nodded, intrigued by Kagali's choice. He stipulated that Kagali must not betray him, proposing that if she placed a contract connection with him and accepted his ultimate enchantment, he would agree to her request. With firm resolve, Kagali swore loyalty to Michael, and the contract was established. To inhabit a deathman meant competing for the body with the deathman itself, that is, contending with the myriad consciousnesses of the deceased souls within the deathman's body. This could result in the strongest while obtaining the body, or a blend of multiple consciousnesses, or even the loss of one's own consciousness. Despite these risks, Kagali was prepared, and so the ritual began, involving the incarnation and the battle of consciousnesses within the deathman. Afterwards, the results emerged. Zalario awoke, feeling the power of his new body, which was unmatched even in the central world. Abra also awoke, her lofty will proving her worth once again. The 6 angelic subordinates each awoke as well, Dalis and Nis with significantly increased existence points, and Oma, who had also absorbed the wills of others. However, not all outcomes favored the angels. The magic warrior Orcaria, a fusion of dual selves, each formerly an officer in the composite division, emerged. Furthermore, in episode 49, Arios, who had been killed by Demrata, woke with a strong curse and successfully seized the body, reviving himself. The last was Mai Furuki, a former subordinate of Yuuki, driven by a strong desire to return to her former world to save her brother, took over a body and successfully revived. In total, 8 individuals awoke, leaving one person still in slumber. Yes, it was Kagali. Kagali had a dream, a nostalgic dream. It was from a time long before she became the demon Lord Kazalim, back when she was a young girl. Although she could no longer remember her original name, Kagali had once been a happy princess. Her kingdom was built on the ruins of a super-magical empire established by high humans, creating a prosperous elven paradise. However, Kagali's father, who was originally gentle and kind, suddenly changed as if he became a different person, proclaiming himself as the Sorcerer Emperor Jahil. We talked about Jahil in episodes 72 and 73. Jahil had once summoned Gi to the central world as the king of a high human nation and was the first creation of Twilight Valentine. It wasn't hard to guess that Kagali's father was controlled by Jahil in some way, the specifics of which would be revealed later. From then on, Kagali's father would be referred to as Jahil. Under Jahil's rule, the once benevolent High Elf King became a tyrannical and oppressive ruler who extravagantly exploited his people. He began conducting foolish experiments, which led to numerous tragedies, with Kagali being one of the victims. Once a High Elf, Kagali had her powers stripped away, and then she was brutally murdered by her own father. Resurrected through dark magic as a deathman, she was given an unsightly body and the name Kazalim, no longer the happy and beautiful princess but a cursed, zombie-like figure. For consistency in the narrative that follows, we will still primarily use the name Kagali and refer to her with female pronouns. After her resurrection, Kagali, hiding her face behind a mask, questioned her father why he would do such a thing, only to receive the response that it was for amusement. Her father laughed joyously, declaring that he had sacrificed tens of thousands of people to revive Kagali. Kagali could not comprehend why her father had changed so drastically. Despite the atrocities her father had committed against her, she still pleaded with him to show compassion to the people as he once had. Upon hearing Kagali's words, Jahil furiously denounced that a daughter could never be relied upon, vowing never to make the same mistake as that great person. Now Kagali, also known as Kazalim, was instilled with absolute loyalty by Jahil. From then on, Kagali was to live as a male, an order that was inescapable. Well, for those who have followed the story, Jahil's reference to that great person was indeed Twilight Valentine, his creator. Twilight Valentine was killed by his own masterpiece, his daughter Luminous Valentine. This explains why Jahil changed Kagali's gender and appearance. From that time, Kagali bid farewell to the father she once knew in her heart, having been killed and transformed into a loyal tool. From that day, everything became a nightmare. The arrogant Jahil, in pursuit of the glory of the Magic Emperor, eventually extended his reach towards Dragon Princess Melim, attempting to turn her into a puppet as well. This vile act led to the destruction of the entire Elven kingdom overnight. Under the cataclysmic flash that obliterated the kingdom, Jahil's fate remained unknown. It should be noted that those who destroyed Jahil and the kingdom were not only the rampaging Melim but also included Dino. And when Kagali mentioned in the previous episode that she had once helped Dino, she was referring to this incident. Kagali did not dwell on her father's actions. Instead, she focused more on those important to her, such as the gentle maid who had always cared for her, the knight who had followed her, and the kind-hearted citizens. As these figures surfaced in her mind, Kagali unleashed a forbidden spell, Birthday, also known as deathman body production. She resurrected her beloved ones, who had become corpses, and created the endearing children she named Tia, Footman, and Clayman. It was then, during her first use of the forbidden spell, that Kagali faced a harsh truth: the death men born through the spell did not possess grotesque appearances. The realization dawned on her that her disfigurement was purely her father's doing, a deliberate act to torment her by taking away her beauty, a curse from her father. Fortunately, the children she had created, in an effort to share Kagali's pain and to ensure she was not alone, also covered their original faces with masks. This act gave Kagali a new hope and a sense of not being alone anymore. Afterward, the surviving elves gathered before Kagali, crowning her as their new ruler, with the mission to revive their nation and create a world where everyone could smile. Kagali secretly resolved to do this, but it was merely a fleeting dream. After Melim awoke as a true demon lord and the pet dragon revived as a chaos dragon, its malevolent aura polluted the land, turning the elves who once admired Kagali into dark elves. Though Kagali also pretended to be cursed, she and her children, being death men, had a certain resistance to curses. Fortunately, their masks concealed their faces, preventing others from noticing anything unusual. This situation once again reminded Kagali that she was different from others. Along with her fellow death men Tia, Footman and Clayman, Kagali fled their homeland under the attack of the Chaos Dragon, wandering until they found a place to settle. Kagali decided that once life stabilized, she would return to her homeland, to the city that had been destroyed, to once again see the land of her memories. This was to sever the ties with her past and to transform it into motivation for her future. On this journey, Kagali encountered a man. This man was Sylvia's husband and Elmesia's father, Sarian Grimwald, a chosen hero who had dared to battle the Chaos Dragon. Although he had successfully driven the Chaos Dragon away, Sarian had received a fatal injury. His entire body under his chest had been blown away. Sarian, ever cheerful, maintained an optimistic demeanor despite his grave condition. Kagali was astonished by Sarian's strength, as he had faced the Chaos Dragon head-on and managed to expel it, though he was on the brink of death himself, displaying a power far surpassing Kagali's own. Kagali offered to help heal Sarian's wounds, but Sarian casually mentioned that the wounds caused by the Chaos Dragon were incurable, otherwise he would have healed himself. Sarian, smiling, did not look like someone on the brink of death. He asked Kagali to relay a message to his wife, telling her that he had triumphed over the evil Chaos Dragon and had died gloriously as a dashing hero. Wanting to save this soul-shining hero, Kagali suggested that Sarian might consider using dark magic to extend his life, though she warned him that the drawbacks could include memory loss or becoming disfigured like her. As she spoke, Kagali removed her mask to reveal her grotesque appearance. Yet Sarian smiled fearlessly, commenting on Kagali's capabilities and expressing his desire to live and see his wife Sylvia again, thus accepting the proposal. However, Kagali urged Sarian to reconsider, for she was a cursed being, and her past sufferings made her wary of committing evil just to avoid persecution. But Sarian was a shining hero, an existence contrary to her own. Moreover, if Sarian accepted the proposal, he would become a puppet under Kagali's control. Sarian laughed, finding the situation quite intriguing. He noted the cyclical nature of causality between heroes and demons, perhaps signifying a destined connection between them. Sarian also asserted his freedom, claiming he would not be so easily dominated by Kagali. Thus, the negotiation was settled, and Sarian was transformed into a deathman, surviving the ordeal. This marked the birth of Cursed Lord Kazalim and Wonder Pierrot Laplace. It's important to note that unlike Tia, Footman, and Clayman, Laplace was not under Kagali's control, but he had lost all memories of his identity as hero Sarian. Many events followed thereafter. As Cursed Lord Kazalim, Kagali established a new power in the wars against humans and demi-humans, gaining recognition as a demon lord. Later, Kazalim endorsed Beast King Carrion and Sky Queen Frey as demon lords, securing powerful allies and enjoying a smooth progression. This success made Kagali somewhat arrogant, and her next target was the emerging demon lord Leon, a stunningly beautiful man. Upon first meeting Leon, envy surged through Kagali's heart. Cursed by her father, Kagali's original beauty was transformed into a hideous appearance, and even her gender was not spared, forcing her to fight desperately to survive. Meanwhile, Leon, as a man, possessed such beauty. Overcome with jealousy, Kagali misjudged her opponent's strength and was utterly defeated. In response to Kagali's challenge, Leon shattered her physical form with a single strike, and only because Kagali was a deathman did her spirit manage to linger in the world. Harboring resentment, but even more determined to fulfill her desires, Kagali, in a moment of fading consciousness, grasped at all hope and used her remaining power for a final summoning, attempting to possess the summoned creature. However, she ultimately failed, leaving only the destruction she had wrought upon herself. Kagali wailed, sighed, and prayed for someone to save her. However, despite no longer being alone, not a single person reached out to help her. This was the path of suffering reserved for a king. As a leader, she had to march forward bravely, allowing no room for complaints. No one would come to her rescue. It was during this time that Kagali encountered the young man, Yuuki Kagarazaka. Yuuki casually accepted Kagali, allowing the weary-looking Kagali to rest inside his own body. Over the following years, Kagali recuperated within Yuuki and worked alongside him to realize her aspirations. Eventually, Kagali once again obtained a physical body. This time, it was an artificial body prepared by Yuuki, and it bore the beautiful female form Kagali originally had. Kagali felt so happy she wanted to cry, but she held back her tears, continuing to speak in a masculine tone, although Laplace dissuaded her from doing so. Laplace's actions seemed like mockery but were actually out of concern for her. It is important to note that Kagali's new body was just an ordinary artificial one, thus she did not possess the formidable powers she had before. Kagali expressed sincere gratitude towards Yuuki. After that, Kagali enjoyed a period of happiness. However, this happiness was short-lived because Clayman died, and once again, something precious was taken from her. Kagali and her group realized that to secure their own happiness, they needed to stand tall in this world and become its rulers. Kagali and her group were not champions of justice, but neither were they evil, they were neutral. It was precisely because of this neutrality that they believed they could create a world where everyone could live happily. With this conviction, Kagali and her associates overcame numerous challenges, but ultimately, their true nature was exposed by Demon Lord Rimuru. They fled to the Eastern Empire, where Tatsuya Kanda then dominated them, and even their boss Yuuki was controlled by Emperor Rudra. Despite this, Kagali never gave up. It was because of these trials that Kagali made a decision to submit to Michael and fell away, forsaking her frail body to become a more powerful deathman. Kagali awoke, and soon after, Michael deployed the army of Angel, summoning 7 seraphim who possessed Kagali, Footman, Tia, Vega, Orca Arya, Arios, and Mai Furuki. The immense power within them interwove, and except for Vega, Kagali and the others were reborn from deathmen to phantoms, also known as mystic angels. Unbeknownst to them, 5 months had passed since Kagali and her companions arrived at Star Palace. However, their tranquil days were about to end. With Dino urgently contacting Rimuru, the Tenma Great War officially began. Alright, that's all for this video. In our next episode, Manus Michael will bestow the ultimate enchantments on all his subordinates. As an entity akin to Manus Seal, the ultimate skill will undergo another significant distribution. Simultaneously, after absorbing Velzard's Dragon Factor, Michael acquired new abilities. With this, Michael's forces will mobilize to attack Leon's Golden City, El Dorado. In the next episode, we will also see how Rimuru appears through Dino's eyes. The character traits of Abara and Zelario will be further revealed. The next episode will also be packed with information, so make sure not to miss it. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated. See you in the next one.